multi-step equations, and we have also gone over fractional equations. The next thing we need to cover that we're working on is literal equations, okay? And that's where they often come in the form of formulas, and you're going to solve for one variable in the formula over the other variable in the formula. So here's an example of how you can do that. All of the work is done for you. This is just to remind you of what we've already gone over. If I wanted to, say, solve for any particular letter, the first thing I do is get rid of the half because the half bothers me. And this is like what we did before when we multiplied by the least common denominator, in this case 2. So when I multiply the a by 2, I get 2a, and when I multiply the half by 2, they go die-die. Abducted by aliens, squished by Sasquatch, canceled by a little old lady, whatever it is. Next step, divide by h. Then I get 2a over h equals a plus b. And then whichever one I'm solving for, a or b, looks like a in this case because it's the different color, I just subtract b from both sides and I get a equals 2a over h minus b. So the purpose of that slide was to remind you of what was going on. And now we have 4 to work on. So we're going to do stop and start, and we'll do one at a time. So do the first question, and then we'll proceed. Okay, so on the first one, the step-by-step of literal equations. I forgot to say that before. Make the equation say whatever you're looking for equals. So for instance, in number 1, you want it to say b equals, in number 2, y equals, and so on. It's often used with formulas, which I just mentioned. And in some ways, these are even easier than regular equations because you cannot make, well, it's very hard to make the sloppy mistake, okay? So here's the solution for number 1. We want to solve for b, which means we want to get b by itself. Oh, and naturally I solved for x. So let's change this to solve for x, because I got x by itself. Add d to both sides, and 5d's and 1d make 6d's. And then I'm going to divide by ab. Lost track of the underline there. But I divide by ab, and I get 6d over ab. Of course, the ab over ab crosses out. So the final answer is x equals 6d over ab. Let's try number 2 with some stop and start. Okay, so with number 2, we're going to solve for y, which means we want it to say y equals. The first step is to subtract the bx from both sides. I want it to get y all by itself. So when I subtract the bx from both sides, I get c minus bx. And because I'm next, the 1/4 means divide by 4. The next I'm going to multiply by 4, and I'm multiplying the whole side by 4. That means I want to put the c minus bx in a grouping symbol. Grouping symbol is a parenthesis. I'm going to multiply the whole group, hence the need for the parenthesis or the grouping symbol. The 4's would go die here, and I'm left with a y equals 4 times c minus bx. So I know that looks weird, and I know that you're probably looking at it like something don't feel right here. But the truth of the matter is, I said before, the third thing in the literal equations box, it's even easier in some ways because it's difficult to go wrong. All you're doing is inverses. You just keep doing the inverse and keep track of what it is that you've done wrong. Okay, let's try number 3, where you solve for p. Okay? All right, so with number 3, I'm going to subtract 9j from both sides because my effort here is to get the p by itself. That gives me 6 minus 9j. I know it looks weird, but it is what it is. And then to get p by itself, I need to divide by x. So I get 6c minus 9j over x. And that is the value of p. Okay? And last but not least, number 4, solve for y. Go ahead, stop and start. Okay? In solving for y, first I have to subtract my 7z from both sides, and that gives me hy equals 14 minus 7z, and then I need to divide both sides by h, and I get h equals 14 minus 7z, I get y equals 14 minus 7z over h. So those are 4 examples of literal equations. My personal feeling is, and having a lot of experience teaching literal equations. In the beginning, they're very awkward, but then eventually students see that they're really not that difficult, and they welcome them on any work that they're going to do. All right, have fun. The next video, we'll start our work with percents.